Well, though I don't want to say I'm happy to report, but it is with mixed emotions that I report. I finally saw one of the DoorDash delivery robots on my street.
Wow, a dot out in the wild. How was it behaving? Did anybody kick it?
The weather is nice now in Arizona, and so there's plenty of people biking and families walking and families biking, and so they have these little like trailers that you put your child in, and those are always very brightly colored. And I thought that's what it was because there's a biker behind this robot. I thought they were like pushing a child, but no, it's just a trailer-shaped red robot with like a masked sunglasses, like very covered up guy in a high-vis vest behind the robot, like making sure that nobody messes with it.
Having to provide an escort for the DoorDash robot feels like it kind of defeats the purpose.
For now, it's temporary, maybe. Tempe, Arizona also suffered some pretty intense rains, a microburst, they call it. And so a bunch of trees fell down. There's like downed trees littering the whole city. And I did see one also. This is at a friend's house they got trapped. I say who? I'm treating this thing like a person. It got stuck in front of the tree, and there's just the guy behind it trying to figure out on his iPad what to do next. So it's happening.
That is not a job that I want, I'll tell you that much.
Well, good thing you have this job where you can tell me the news. What's the first story?
Sysco's dominance has made many restaurant menus across the U.S. taste suspiciously similar due to widespread use of mass-produced frozen foods. Meanwhile, competitors at U.S. Foods and Performance Food Group are considering a $100 billion merger that could further limit competition and options in the food distribution industry.
This is the second time ever that we have reported on a more perfect union video. Do you remember the first one was the beef monopoly?
Yeah, JBS. I always want to call it JCS after the crime channel.
I'm not even familiar with that one. But this video in question that we're talking about this week is much more impactful with at least 2.5 million views right now. And I keep seeing it get shared a lot. I think people like to throw around words like clickbait to talk about titles and thumbnails, but I see it mostly as a matter of positioning. And, for example, my last video did not do well. I think water is an ingredient is not that remarkable of a position as I expected versus what does medium heat even mean, which did very well. I have used the names of Sysco and Aramark at least twice in my past videos on my main channel, so I don't think our audience is the type to be surprised by this story to any degree. So I guess to me, the remarkable part is how the title of this video, I tracked down the company ruining restaurants, turned out to be such successful positioning rather than something like all of your food comes from one manufacturer, which might be seen more as common knowledge. That's my own personal reaction if I am to react to like the content of the story, which is what I imagine people actually want. One, I do think this is another case of buyers getting precisely what they want. If it turns out that molten chocolate lava cake is always the best seller no matter what, then there's a hefty incentive to provide the Sysco molten chocolate lava cake. And somebody on last week's episode took issue with me saying that because, one could argue that customers are often tricked into wanting something via marketing or culture war stuff, but I would insist that they still want it in that case. Two, I don't eat at these types of places that get their ingredients from places like this, unless, of course, my beloved Twin Peaks is lying about their scratch kitchen during my now monthly visits.
As far as your video goes, I think you missed out on the opportunity to just call it Water is Wet. I think you would have had a little bit more rage engagement there. As far as the title of this video goes, I think that emotional play, the word ruin is such a heavy word that I think that has a big factor in it. Like you said, clickbait is really just how you are positioning this, and you are positioning it in a way that makes people like, oh no, my favorite restaurant is being ruined by this company. In reality, 9 times out of 10, if you are eating French fries out anywhere, they are Sysco French fries. And I know that you commented that, thankfully, our audience is mostly made up of the type of people who understand, what Sysco is and how food suppliers work, at least a little bit. But the way that I was introduced to this video was through people who are very much not aware of that kind of thing. I am not really a Threads user, but I do get, the threads suggested to me on Instagram a lot. And I discovered this video through one of those, which was a woman, having a meltdown kind of about, oh, all these restaurants use Sysco and I can't go out to eat anymore and I have to make all my food at home now because everything is just Sysco, Sysco, Sysco. And there's just so many things that I think are wrong about that. The fact that people out there really think that when they're going out to eat, that these jalapeno poppers are being like made and assembled to order. Like they're not. And if you're someone that thinks they are and you're still like feeling wronged by this Sysco thing, there may be no help for you. I don't know if I really have much to offer there. Um, but also like having a Sysco supplier is not like the red flag that I see a lot of people treating it to be. Like, Sysco sells frozen French fries and paper goods and vegetables and ingredients and spices. Like, seeing a Sysco truck parked outside your favorite restaurant is not something that you really need to concern yourself with. However, something you should concern yourself with is when you're paying out the nose for catering for your wedding and it's just frozen heat and eat Sysco appetizers, because it is all the time.
I don't know if anybody remembers the old like Simpsons episode where they're doing customer viewer testing, like a focus group on Itchy and Scratchy viewers, the children, and they're like, "Let me get this straight. You want an entirely grounded in reality series with aliens and space lasers? Yeah, that's what we want." And this is same sort of thing that I get whenever we talk about like consumers at large, where it's like, hold on, you want value. And you want like replicability, and you want all of your favorite items like mozzarella sticks, but this time dosed in a chili sauce at Chili's and a honey glaze at somewhere else, Buffalo Wild Wings. But you also want it to be scratch made and also completely unique. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yes, that's what we want. It's hard for me to imagine somebody seeing a Cisco truck outside as a mark of shame any more than it would be a mark of shame to be like, I'm ordering chicken fingers and French fries at a sit-down restaurant.
Yeah, I think that is kind of the best summary of it all. I will say that the amount that The Simpsons comes up on this show has been a borderline alarming, and it's just further proof to the whole like the Simpsons prefaces reality thing. Like every other episode, I feel like.
It's actually much worse than you know because you weren't part of last week's Ben Tierney interview. I used that exact scene to talk about Ben Tierney's perspective of what people want from food media online, which is like, you want a relatable person who only goes to affordable places, but also that takes you to new places that you've never had before and don't have access to. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Derek cut that out, so now I get to use it a second time, and I guess I'm revealing the fact that I don't have a whole lot of new analogies when it comes to reacting to things. In the same way that I imagine most people who have been to a slaughterhouse are like, if anybody could visit a slaughterhouse, far fewer people would eat meat. I feel the same way about going to restaurant supply stores, because I'll go to restaurant supply stores and get like whisks and things like that for $1 because they're so much cheaper. And then you go and you see like, oh, like all the teriyaki sauce from all the restaurants around here, it's just the same one, or like all the uh, ketchup is an easy one. I don't know. Have you ever been to a restaurant supply store and just become disillusioned with how often everybody's just using the same bulk sauces and condiments?
Yeah, I remember there was one back kind of near my hometown that had this like big freezer just full of like frozen apps, like I was kind of talking about with the catering stuff. And I was just like, wow, like 500 vegetable egg rolls, huh? Like every single Chinese restaurant in the area is very much using these.
I think my favorite example of one supplier being the person who supplies every version of a certain type of restaurant is when you go to a Euro place or a gyro place and they have the French fries coated in potato starch. That is always a hit for me, and I am happy to see that they are all from the same supplier in that one specific scenario every time.
Oh man, I'm not gonna rehash that conversation,
Good.
but we have had quite an extensive discussion about that in Discord. I'll leave that as an incentive for people to join.
This is this is the sort of infighting online that we incentivize people to join $9 a month for at patreon.com/Shaq.
JM Smucker is suing Trader Joe's, claiming their new crustless PB&J sandwiches copy the design and imagery of their popular Uncrustables. While the food itself cannot be trademarked, Smucker's protects its distinct shape and branding, arguing that Trader Joe's is unfairly capitalizing on their brand reputation.
I know that I have seen plenty of great value type store brand Uncrustables before. So I was wondering why is the Trader Joe one the one that sets this off? So I did some Google image searches and I noticed that most of the other guys seem to go for a square shape. And I'm thinking that this circle with that specific sort of Rolex pie pan crimp around the edges is where things start to get a little bit too close for an open and shut case, especially if you argue that the specific crimping pattern is part of the branding. Like if JM Smucker is able to be like, we use precisely 143 crimps and so do they, or they get dangerously close to that number, it might be a little bit of a harder case to win for Trader Joe.
I think the crimping might really be the secret of this all, if I'm being honest, because I saw that that in 2022, there was a similar lawsuit between Smuckers and a company called Gallant Tiger that still exists. They still have a website up and running with their products, which come in crazy flavors that Uncrustables does not. It's like a kind of a very different product, but it looks very similar, similar crimping, similar packaging design. And given those similarities and the fact that they are still existing, still using that imagery, I feel like there has to be something to that design that despite those glaring similarities, it's still lacking. And I feel like maybe that could be it, is the pie pan crimping.
So we've now been doing the show for long enough that every story warrants a callback to a previous story. And I remember we covered Aldi fighting with Mondelez because their fake Oreos and fake Nutter Butters, or store brand Oreos and Nutter Butters, looked too similar in packaging, right? Did that ever come to a conclusion, by the way?
I have not seen any like concrete conclusion of it. There are a lot of similarities between that and this case, but something that I find interesting here is that it's the focus is so much more on the product itself rather than the packaging. Smuckers did say that the bite being taken out of it is kind of a big part of their like intellectual property of the packaging, which I find interesting because that is something that you do see on like a lot of the other off-brand ones, but upon closer inspection, a lot of those off-brand ones where you see like a corner missing, it doesn't
It's
actually
a
look like a
slice,
bite
right?
mark.
It's
It's
not
a
a bite.
slice. Yeah, it's not a bite mark.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing as you said the bite, because I know you're allowed to show the cross section, but I've never quite seen the bite shape. I think that Trader Joe's greatest defense is, unlike Aldi, Trader Joe does not sell, the name brand stuff. Aldi will sell Oreos and then Aldios or whatever you want to call it, whatever they're called. And Trader Joe only sells their own store brand products. So there's really no way that somebody could walk into that store and expect to get Uncrustables, the name brand product, because there are no real name brand products there, right?
Trader Joe's actually does carry like a small smattering of name brand products. The only two that I can think of off the top of my head are Miyoko's vegan butter and Bear Bell's protein bars. So that's not exactly like a robust list of examples. But I do think that because the Trader Joe's doesn't sell anything where they're like, here's the original and here's our version on the shelf, that I think that that distinction really works in their favor because they're like, no, you can't possibly confuse it because there's no other option.
What's so funny is that I thought Bear Bells was a Trader Joe brand because that's the only place I've ever seen them. So
Oh, that's funny. I will say that the Trader Joe's ones look disgusting. I saw Dope Kitchen on Instagram trying them out, and they look as though there's not any peanut butter separating the jelly from the bread, which I think that's like what helps the Uncrustable keep its integrity so the jelly isn't seeping through the bread. It looked soggy and looked foul.
oh, gross. Well, that's another pro on their legal defenses. Your Honor, ours look much, much grosser. They cannot be
Your Honor, ours are
confused for the real product.
yucky.
Yeah.
A major food fraud investigation across 31 countries discovered organized crime networks infiltrating waste disposal sites, taking expired food, altering its packaging, and reintroducing it into the food supply. Over $110 million worth of product was seized, showcasing an unprecedented scale of this type of crime, adding fuel to the fire at a time of consumer distrust.
In regards to general fraud for consumer products, I will admit that I made it most of the way through 2025 without realizing how common it is. And this is an example of like, we talk about people like, how did you not know potato chips were made out of potatoes or that all your food comes from Sysco? It's like, I didn't know so much stuff was forged. The Arizona Mills Mall in Tempe has kiosks, like manned kiosks that sell dupes of Versace Eros and Dior Sauvage in branded bottles to make them look real. And I asked, why are your prices so low? They said, oh, this is our dupe. I don't know how that's legal. I don't know how they get away with it. Facebook Marketplace has dubiously inexpensive items listed in my neighborhood, but then you message them and they send you a link to a Telegram in the description where it's revealed that it's an overseas replica maker that is selling directly to customers via Facebook Marketplace. So eBay, Mercari, and even Amazon, they'll have like branded items from third-party sellers that turn out to be fake, and they'll have marketing materials like an authenticity guarantee that isn't always honored. So if I'm just now finding out about how much stuff online and in the streets is straight up forged, I do guess that I need to consider how often that applies to groceries. However, it seems as though this is not so much an issue of like putting illegal pork in the hot dogs, right? It's more about defrauding the customer by obscuring dates and weights.
Yeah, I think even less so about the weights, you know, a lot of this is, like, really just expired product that is making its way into, like, restaurants and people's homes, and it is, like, a lot of times canned and jarred goods because it's very easy to take a solvent and just get rid of that date on there and reprint a new one. And at that point, you know, it's stuff that's packaged in a way that you can't see what's inside. You don't really know the state of what's going on in there. And it is like the legitimate product itself. It's just a rancid or expired version, unlike, you know, the perfume that, while packaged in a bottle that looks like the original, I'd be willing to bet that side by side there are probably some differences in the packaging that set it apart, like, just enough, in terms of, like, the legality of it.
I'm not so sure. I've even seen some eBay postings of like some luxury goods that will have a receipt with it, and one of them was like a Saks Fifth Avenue in Florida, and I don't know how to like read the details of a receipt other than what the product is and the cost. So I just randomly Googled like one of the strings of numbers, seeing if it was maybe like a credit card number or an authorization ID or something, and the Google image results was like just dozens and dozens of like other luxury goods from this exact same Saks Fifth Avenue in Florida from the same like seller. Like it was all just forged. And so I was like, thank goodness that I like Googled that number because there's this whole way of like printing fake receipts that's all funneling through this one Florida Saks Fifth Avenue. I don't know. I guess this is one of those cases in which TikTok might turn out to be a major force for good among the people who are not paying attention demographic. When you start to see TikToks of people like weighing their chicken and noting the disparity or showing moldy foods with a fake Best Buy date that's still in the future, it could be a meaningful way to get people to care. And it seems like right now, when there's a concern over food safety, like with seed oils or food dyes or lead content, there's always a good number of experts and scientists online to be like, hold up, this is why things might not be as bad as you think. But I believe that culturally, since food fraud can be largely attributed to budget cuts and staffing cuts in governmental food safety organizations, there won't be many influencers on that side of culture saying things like, wait a second, guys, do not freak out about this. I think this is going to be like a very one-sided viral moment if it does gain steam and people are posting like, hey, we should all be worried that this expired meat is being sold as fresh.
In the article for this, the woman basically said at the end, like, you at the end of the day, you don't really know what you're buying from the grocery store. And in terms of perishable products like poultry and red meat and stuff, like, use them up very quickly, like faster than you might even think is like food safe. Um, and this article made me think back to a an unsavory, family-owned grocery store back where I used to live that I knew several people that worked at, and the owners had these people place price stickers over the expiration dates of expired product, including meat. They also had, like, a butcher in there. So it's not even just, on this huge organized crime scale, like, you have to worry about, like, your local mom and pop shop doing this to you, which I feel like is just such a it's a horrible thing to have to think about, and it's, like, one of those, like, conversations we have that is very much, like, makes me feel, like, black-pilled about the food industry, and I'm just like, "I'm just gonna get chickens, and I'm gonna build a bigger garden," and, you know, and I know that that's not the answer for everyone.
And maybe a few years ago, I might have thought it unserious to count vibes as a newsworthy qualitative data point, but that's not really the case anymore when, for example, like the vibe session became a meaningful concept in the face of strong economic data that coincides with high inflation and high inequality and poor consumer sentiment. But my personal food buying vibes are not great right now. It's nice being a Costco member when you know that they will be eager to make things right after something goes wrong to the degree that they recalled butter that didn't have the contains dairy label on it. But that's just making a bigger gulf between the haves and the have-nots. I think of American discount foods, which I've mentioned on my main channel before briefly, where like it's a it's a discount food store where the food is technically expired, and there's no way to talk about it in a way that makes it sound good. But it is a cool place to be. You can get. I remember I got Soylent there for like 5 cents a can. But I don't know if I'd be comfortable really shopping there in a year if this trend continues. And I go there for a cheeky deal on yuppie food products, but there are plenty of families in real life who like go there out of necessity and get their groceries from there. And so, very yucky, stinky trend that I see as contributing to an overall bad vibe.
And I will say, like, as alarming as all of this information is, like, don't let it scare you to the point that you're, like, you know, not eating your like pantry goods because they're like approaching the expiration date and you're worried they might be older than they are or something like that. Like, you know, there's all of this like new regulations coming in about like how we label food products in relation to their expiration date. Like I know California is making some big changes to their labels in the next year to kind of clarify things. Um all that to say, like, your expired pasta is safe to eat. But be careful about your pork and your chicken and stuff.
You say California's coming up with new labels, and I think of, like, Prop 65, so it's just every California product is gonna be like a pack of cigarettes where it's like, "Eating food will kill you."
Yeah, and it's gonna have a picture of like a stomach tumor on it.
Yeah, exactly. Alright, speaking of stomach tumors, what's the new disgusting product lineup for this week?
This week for you, I have a very good tomato sauce line from Allison Armand, Progresso Pitmaster deodorant, and Bear Bell's new line of protein sodas with 10 grams of protein and a whopping 200 milligrams of caffeine.
Fake fan detected. Allison Roman. This is Allison Roman. How dare you?
Is it Roman? I've actually never watched any of her videos, so I
Fake
don't
fan.
know how to say it out loud. I'm not a big fan of her to begin with, TBH. So I don't feel bad.
Feel like Allison Roman's tastes and mine are two completely separate circles in a Venn diagram. Like, I don't love many of the things that she loves in terms of taste, and so I've never, like, cooked any of her recipes or anything like that, but I do appreciate her, contribution to the food media ecosystem. She's, like, sort of like Taylor Swift in that way, where it's just like, "Well, I see what you're doing over there, and, it doesn't interest me in the slightest, but you go on, go get it." I think a lesser man would have chosen best tomato sauce as a name instead of a very good tomato sauce. That would be much better SEO.
I would agree with that. I don't think it quite has the same ring to it. Um, I do find it interesting though. On her website, it specifically like says on the page for the tomato sauce, she's like, generally, I wouldn't recommend buying tomato sauce. Just make your own. Which is like not a good selling point, but I do get it. You know, as somebody that likes to make things from scratch, like will make tomato sauce at home, but also will sometimes buy the cheap 2-pack of the tomato sauce at Sam's Club or whatever. I will say it's not it's expensive tomato sauce that she's selling, but it's not that expensive. Like
I didn't even
compared
look it
to
up. I just assumed.
it's like $10 a jar, which is as far as what, you know, you can get at the grocery store for some of the like higher end ones. You know, there's like a Carbone one that you can buy that I think is like $9 or $10. Um, it's not horrifying if you're somebody that really doesn't want to make it yourself and you want something that's good quality. Like, I bet it's good tomato sauce. There's no sugar in it. I like that. But beyond that, just buy some canned tomatoes, man.
This weekend, I did receive my shipment from Masa and Vandy's. They make the beef tallow fried tortilla chips and potato chips, respectively. And, you know, they're a yuppie product like so many other brands that send me free stuff. And it's just like, yeah, in the world of yuppie products, it's not that expensive, but it's still a $10 bag of chips, just like Foles is. And so, I don't know, like we did talk about peak influencer last week, and we did mention the Molly Baz mayo, but based on some of the responses to that, I'm beginning to think that the J. Kenji Lopez Alt Always Pan collab is more under the microscope right now, as like the I can't believe they did that collab yuppie product influencer thing.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot about that, and I saw like a post about it on Instagram in passing, and I just thought it was like a sponsorship because Always Pan is like always sponsoring people online. I remember maybe was it 4 or 5 years ago where those like pastel pans were like inescapable. Everyone had a discount code for them. I've heard they're terrible, so I'd be very
Yeah, from a video
surprised to
I made
see.
about
Yeah.
them. Remember the
Oh,
That
is
was one of the biggest takedowns that I like when I first started making, complaining YouTube shorts about products. It was like, "You do not need an Always Pan." That was, like, one of the first ones.
Yeah, I've heard they're absolutely terrible. Which it surprises me that, you know, I feel like Kenji is someone that generally puts forth this like energy of like, you know, you don't need all this like fancy stuff to like make good food. You just need to like know what you're doing. Um I don't know what makes this pan so special.
I don't either. I think it might be titanium or something. I didn't look too much into it. I just saw a lot of rumblings about it and knew that that might be something that we covered one day. But, you know, my wife tells me all the time, like, you know, for as much as you talk about like not buying stuff, you're really setting yourself up for failure because one of these days you're going to need to sell people stuff and your audience is going to be a bunch of people who don't want to buy anything. And I think that is true. Like when you sort of paint yourself into a corner where it's like make your own sauce or use the cheapest pans, then it becomes difficult to pitch like the value proposition of your new collab or product. And I don't want any more Reddit posts about me about how I'm throwing shade at other influencers, so I'm not going to talk about this anymore, but
That's never gonna
that's
stop.
yeah.
That's never gonna stop.
The Progresso Pitmaster deodorant, do you have any, scent notes, top notes, mid notes, base notes? Do we know anything about that?
I think it said that it was, like, freshly grilled barbecue and smoke, which is not the worst smell, you know? That next day after a bonfire where you put your jacket on, it still smells a little bit like smoke. I get it. However, I don't want the Progresso branding anywhere near something that I'm putting on my body. Even if it doesn't smell like soup, I'm going to assume that it smells like soup in the way that, like, old people kind of do.
Yeah, I guess scents are evocative. Margiela has By the Fireplace or By the Fire, which is like a very smoky one. I am no better than any of these people who buy the Progresso fragrance. I am holding Amouage Search in my hand, 10 milliliter decant, and oh, it's like pure barbecue. It is just like charcoal briquettes underneath a lemon tree, and it is so freaking good that if it came in a Progresso can, I would still buy it. I love the smell so much.
The thing that I think is weird, and I know that they, like, have to do this because they are, like, a food company and what they sell is soup, but, like, it's, like, $15 and it's, like, the Pitmaster pack or something, and it's just 1 stick of deodorant, 1 can of soup, and I something about that just feels so silly to me.
That's a great price. I think this 10 milliliter thing was like $30. So,
Well, there
I
you
mean,
go, you have your new signature scent.
Bear Bell's new line of protein soda. It goes to show you how little I know about Bear Bells. I thought they were a Trader Joe's brand, but to 10 grams of protein with 200 milligrams of caffeine, it won't be something I purchase, but if all data shows anything, it's that this will be a successful product because people want a super functional beverage that can make them feel different than their normal state at all times.
Yeah, I think that this is going to be, like, the next big, like, workout bev. Celsius has the 200 milligrams of caffeine where it feels like it just, like, punches you right in the chest when you drink it. And it's like a small can, just like the Celsius. I think it's like a 12-ounce can. A lot of the other protein sodas I've seen were, like, really big, like, Monster Energy size cans, and that feels like a lot of liquid to get down for your protein hit. Um, Putting it in something smaller and having the dual caffeine protein feels like it is a more approachable beverage. I can't say I'll be reaching for it, but the flavors look good. It looks like a regular, like, fun sody pop. I do worry that somebody might just think it's a protein soda, throw it back, and then be like, "Why am I having heart palpitations?"
Your talk about Jim Beverage just fed me my 2026 prediction, which is that some food brand like Progresso or Liquid Death is going to come out with their own brand of smelling salts. It's going to smell like hot dogs or something, and that's going to be a hit product.
Oh, that would be a great Liquid Death product.
And not to do too many victory laps around my hot dog prediction of last year, but did you see Kate Spade was in the news bigly this week because of their hot dog ring?
I have not seen that. I do know that Kate Spade makes a ton of, like, very kitschy, like, food related and other sort of, like bags that look like other stuff. So that seems very on brand for them. It really is a big year for hot dogs, though. I can't deny it.
And the page is down either because of so much backlash about how ridiculous it was or so much interest that the page 404'd and like DDoSed. I don't know enough about computers to know if that's what it's called, but it's down. It's not working right now.
I feel like that has to be interest. Like, I don't think there's people who would be sincerely mad about that.
You haven't spent enough time on Facebook then because you have no idea how mad people can get over stuff that you make up. You'd be like, Kate Spade is selling this new engagement ring that's made to be proposed with, and somebody will get upset about that.
I mean, propose with the hot dog ring, obviously. Yeah. Like, thank you for another week of letting me traumatize you with the news and some bizarre products. We'll see you again next week.
I've got frags to smell. Goodbye. See you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Eater's Digest is published every Friday morning on YouTube with video and Spotify with audio. You can support the show by subscribing, by sharing it with somebody who might like it, or by joining our Discord at patreon.com/Shack.